Everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the 21st Flutter tutorial. Alright, so in this tutorial we're going to be continuing our conversation about material design, but we're also going to be just kind of looking around here, and if I can find it, yeah, basic widgets. We're going to cover the row and the column classes and kind of hunt and pick and see what they do. Definitely recommend going out and reading their little I want to say their documentation plus the sample code. I was going to call it something fancy, but the word escapes me. All right, so we're not going to do their code, but I'd highly recommend you use their code and you kind of play around with it, figure out how it works. We're just going to dive right in here, and we're going to create a whole new project. And we're going to call this Basic Layouts. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not going to cover their examples, it's because, well, their examples are on the web. You can just quite simply copy and paste those into your app, and they should, quotey fingers, should just work. Also, it's really because I kind of want to do something a little more advanced than just the bare basic here, plug this in and talk about it for 3 hours. So we're going to wipe all that out, wipe all this out. All right, so go in here. You can notice how test has got a little problem here. We're just going to delete that. If you're wondering why it has a problem, it's because it's referencing the My app, which we just deleted. We're going to actually create that, though. We're going to extend the stateless widget again. All right, so what we're going to really be covering in this is the row and the columns, and we're going to intentionally make this application very busy, a lot busier than it really should be. And when I say busy, I mean the code is just going to be a complete mess, and there'll probably be a lot of mistakes, but I just kind of want to prove a point here. And don't worry, we're going to fix it in the next tutorial, what it really should be. But I just want to show you how kind of spaghetti code-ish this could be a little bit. But even though it is spaghetti code, it's actually still very easy to work with here. So we're going to build a material app. All right, so we've got our home and our material app is set. Let's actually build this and push this out to our emulator just to make sure we'd have no problems going forward here. It's going to take just a second for this thing to compile. All right, so as expected, we have our big white box with our slow mode. We're going to go out here. Now that we have our scaffold, something we want to do is actually make the body here. We're going to add an app bar too. Actually. Now, someone had already emailed me and said, hey, why is everything an object? This gets a little nuts having to say new text just to set the title. That's a good question. It's because it uses Dart in the background. It's the underlying language is Dart. And because in Dart, everything is an object. So everything's a class. All right, so the body of this, we're going to just make a new container. And we're going to use container simply because we want to be able to use some padding in here. And we want to say 32.0 just because why not? And then we want to, let's just play around with this a little bit here. We'll say child, new center, and in child we're going to say in center we're going to say new child equal new column. And here's our actual column. Now the column is going to go from top to bottom. And in that, we can say children. You notice how this is different from child. The first thing it's doing is it's saying, hey, this is templated. So it's going to hold a type of widget, and then here is our actual array. And through the magic of copy and paste, there's going to be a whole lot of copy and paste in this tutorial. Initializing hot reload, and you can see it reloaded. So here is what we've got thus far. So we've got our app bar, we've got our body in our scaffold, and the scaffold has a container. And think of a container just as a glass box. It's see-through, right? So in this box, we've said we want the padding to be 32.0, which is why we've got 32.0 from the top. If we got rid of that center, it would also be 32.0 from the edge here, but we just wanted it centered. Now, in that center, we have a child called a column. The column does top to bottom. The widgets that we have in there are three texts: hello and hello, world, and then the exclamation. So bang, 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 there's our three. Pretty simple, pretty easy to use a column, but as you can see, our text starts getting a little crazy, and the tab markers, these lines, keep going out and out and out and out, and it gets kind of nuts here. So what we want to do next is we want to say new row, and you can see how the tab marker goes out again, and it gets kind of crazy here. We're going to do cross-axis alignment, center, so basically we want to center everything, and then main axis alignment, we want to center that, and then from there we can add our children. Notice how this is once again templated. It's a templated array. Is that even the right term? Templated array. It's expecting a widget type, and it's an array. So we're just going to grab some hello world here, dump that in, and let's see if hot reload picks that up. Looks like it did. So there's our hello world. So that's going across here. Not liking that too much. There's no space between hello and world, so let's actually get this out here. Let me look at this for just a second, see how we want to do this here. All right, let's do this. Let's get rid of this guy. And we're going to say, actually, we can probably just, no, let's do this. I'm deviating from my notes. That's why I'm sitting here on the fence about something here. Sometimes I like to just play around and do things because the notes get kind of boring, because by the time I've recorded this video, I've already done it 2 or 3 times. So we're going to pad this by 5. And then from there, we're going to say and we are just going to grab these right here because I just don't feel like typing that out again. So now you can see how we have got our rows and columns. That was my chair that made that noise. Hope this thing didn't just break and dump me on my butt. Alright, so let's find this little guy, and this is very helpful. Where you click on one of these endpoints here, it'll actually highlight where it begins. So we're going to grab this, comma, comma, and hot reload picked it up. So you can see now how it is our hello world on the top, and then we've got 3 on the bottom here. So what we've really done is we've got a column. So here's the first one, here's the second one. And in that second one, we have a row. We have bang, 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 and in each item, we've got another column. So that is kind of crazy how you can lay things out, but you can get really precise with just rows and columns. I'm kind of surprised. Some other mobile frameworks, rows and columns completely suck, but with Flutter, it's actually not bad. I mean, you get pretty nice precision here, and you can just add on and on and on. But as you can see, what happens to your code is it starts pushing out, and you get these tab markers, these lines that go out and out and out and out, and it's not uncommon that you get way out here. So you really need to, and we're going to cover this in a future tutorial, how to kind of shrink that down a little bit and compartmentalize or make things into components or widgets. Ideally, you could actually take this whole hello world thing and make that way you don't have this spaghetti code going out. So that in a nutshell is really how to work with rows and columns, and it's super simple, super easy. I kind of wish this was like a long drawn out tutorial, but it's really just not, because they're so easy to work with. Kind of the major takeaway from this is that when you're working with these, you should kind of check the axis alignment, and you can put things where you want. And then the children property, not the child property, the children, because it can hold more than one, is templated. So you can say widget, and then you can actually change that if you wanted to. Not recommended, but you can change that if you want to. And then it has an array, and you can see how that's everything that's in that array. And then you can, see here again, that's everything in this array. Pretty similar, both row and column follow the same design pattern. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you found this educational and entertaining. Highly recommend going out reading their official documentation. The source code for this and all other tutorials will be out on. Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the 22nd Flutter tutorial. Alright, so we're continuing where we left off with our basic layouts application. We're going to kind of clean up the spaghetti code a little bit. As you can see, this gets kind of unruly, and we've got some stuff. So this is a basic design pattern is really what we're going to be doing. We've got this hello world, and let's actually run this in case you missed the last video. You can see exactly what's going on here. We got that hello world repeated. We've got rows and columns, and it's just really simple, just stupid layout, right? So you can see in our application we have some repetition. Hello world, hello world, hello world. So that's all repeated. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that hello world, each one of these, and convert it into its own full-blown widget here. That way we can get rid of some of the spaghetti code. So the first thing we need to do is let's actually make a new Dart file. And we want to import the Flutter/material because we're working with material design, right? Now, really, it's not that bad making a whole new component. I thought this was going to be like a huge, long, drawn-out tutorial. It's really not. So we're going to extend a stateless widget. Help if I could spell widget. And remember, the build is, whenever you see build, think render. So we're not building a widget, we're rendering a widget. So this is what we're going to actually render on the screen here. And because it returns a widget, we need to, you guessed it, actually do something here. So let's go back to our application here, and you can see we've got some design pattern going on. So there's this, let me get rid of this. You can see container, container, container. So let's actually just borrow that, right? Let's find our endpoint, which is this guy. Grab that, copy and paste it, put a semicolon, and bang, our component is now done. So really all we're doing is rendering that hello world inside of its own little container with its padding and everything. So let's actually go up here. We're going to import the hello.dart. And now that we have that import, you guessed it, what we can do is just get rid of this. Let's grab this little guy. And we're going to get rid of these three right here. Just put our hello widget. So I'm going to actually kill this app. That way it'll rebuild the whole thing so you know there's no trickery on my part going on here. So let's save that, rebuild it, run it out, push it to the emulator. It'll take just a second, but it should look exactly the same. The real difference here is that we have pushed that snippet of code into its own little widget. That way we're not retyping that over and over again, and we can just reuse that. We can even extend it if we wanted to. It makes our code a lot easier to handle and a lot smaller too. You can see we still got this this tab line going out further and further and further, but it's not as verbose and it's not as spaghetti as it was before. So it's a lot more manageable. Just wanted to do that quick tutorial because I've already had a few questions on design pattern and Flutter, and we haven't really gotten there yet, but I kind of wanted to cover that early on. And in a lot of my future tutorials, I will actually use this sort of design pattern where I break everything off into its own file, simply because I don't want these unwieldy, 3,000 line text documents. All right, simple, easy. Hope you found it enjoyable and entertaining. And the tutorial will be out on voidrealms.com. Click on tutorials and then go out to GitHub. And I know I say this every single tutorial, but we have a Void Realms Facebook group with almost 1,800 programmers in there. Basically, I'm pushing this because everybody in there is very helpful. I've even asked a lot of questions and gotten a lot of feedback, so it's a good resource to know. Thank you for watching. Hey everybody, it's Brian. Welcome to the 23rd Flutter tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about two things, the app bar and state. State is kind of this weird, ambiguous term, but we're going to try and break it down a little bit. Before we really dive into that, if you go to flutter.io and you click on sample catalog, you'll see there is full sample code to, well, pretty much complete applications, and it works. I'm just amazed that this is in alpha and everything's working so far. It just shows the amount of brain power that's really gone into this. Now, what we're going to be doing today is working with the app bar, which is this little blue bar, which we put up there, but we're going to put buttons up there and make those work. We're not going to blatantly rip off this demo that they have up here. I'll leave that for them. But I want to kind of key in on some other things. So I've got a new project up called app bar demo, and we're just going to start typing away here. So import, and we're going to import the Flutter material.dart package. Remember, we need that to work with the material apps. And then we're going to say and we're going to do run app. And in case you either don't remember or didn't watch any of my previous tutorials, run app is kind of the main entrance point to your application. So without run app, nothing runs. We're going to leave that blank for now. We need to make two other classes real quick here. We're going to extend the stateful widget, not the stateless widget like we've done in the past. And then we're going to make a private class called myAppState. Extends state, of my app. So before we really start fleshing these out, what are they? Why do we need them? Okay, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do main, and then we're going to run app. So we're going to run my app. An instance of my app will be created. I actually should create that. There. An instance of my app will be created and shoved out into memory. Now, I shouldn't say shoved out into memory, shoved out to the emulator, which I'm going to actually boot that up while I'm talking here. And that'll just go off to the side while it starts up. Now we have the stateful widget and state. Now in the past we've worked with stateless widgets. What's really the difference here? Well, a stateful widget and even a stateless widget is what's called immutable, meaning it will not change. And I'm actually going to put this, will not change. Okay, well that's great, but we want to actually change something on the screen, so what we need is a state, which will change. Man, I cannot type today. So to get these two to work together, what we need to do is we have a stateful widget, and we're going to actually override the create state. So effectively what we've done here is, it looks like a bit of a circular reference, but we're saying the my app state, which extends state, so just don't think of this as my app state, just think the state is going to be the state of my app, this guy. So our immutable widget will have a state inside of it. Now, in our state, the my app state, we can do certain things. For example, we can say string, oops, that's great. We haven't really done anything there. And let's say my state. Let's make this private as well, just to have a similar code convention here. Now you notice how it's already barking at us, and it's saying it's missing a concrete implementation of state.build. Remember in previous conversations, whenever I said build, think of build as render. We're going to build or render the widget. So we need to override, and then we're going to say widget. There, now we're actually not doing anything. So we need to combine some of the knowledge that we've learned in previous tutorials, being material app and scaffold. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to return a new material app. And don't forget your little semicolon at the end, or it will get mad at you. And we're going to say the title is the title variable. And we want the home to be a new scaffold. Now this is where things get a little interesting here. Remember, we're building this in state. You really don't have to do that. You could actually have this as a stateless widget and then have certain parts of it be stateful. But for this example, I want all of this to be the state. Because it gets a little kind of cumbersome and complex when you're doing only certain parts of it. I want you to understand what's really going on under the hood here. So we've got our title, we've got our home, and then in the scaffold we want a app bar. We've talked about this before. And in our app bar, let's just get that in there. I'm going to set that to the title variable as well. Now, what's it barking about here? String can't be assigned to the parameter type widget. Why are you doing that? Oh yeah, because we got to put a widget in there. My bad. That screwed me up for like a microsecond. I was like, what is going on here? All right, so we've got this. Now that we have our home, we want to put in a body. And we're just going to say the obligatory hello world. And actually, let's change this around a little bit. I want this to be a little fancier than this. We're going to put in a new container, padding. Don't know why I picked 32, just good old days when icons were exactly 32 inches, or 32 inches, geez, 32 pixels. That's the kind of day I've had. And we're going to say new center for the child. If you have no idea what I'm doing, this really should be old school for you by now, because we've been doing this for like 20 some odd tutorials. And then we're just going to pump our new text right there. Now remember, everything in Dart is an object, so we're going to go ahead and run this on our device. Whoops. Actually, let's do this. There we go. And we're going to just basically thing builds and runs. If it doesn't, then we'll resolve any issues that we have. I'm fairly confident it will run though. Now, I did have some feedback, and I do try to keep up on feedback, but my inbox is just looks like a bomb went off at any given moment. So it's really, if you email me, it's luck of the draw. That's why I keep pushing for this Voidrum's Facebook group. But they said, why does it take so long to build? Well, you have to have respect for what's going on under the hood here. Is you're taking a language, compiling that into another language, and then compiling that into a whatever the device needs, and then pushing it out to the device. So there's a lot of middleware going on there. All right, so here's our app bar. Here's our hello world. So far nothing's happening. We can't really click on anything. So what is state? Okay, well, what we want to do is we want to change this hello world depending on some sort of user interaction. That's the state of the application. Think of state like you have a parent. You're going to go ask your mom, hey, Mom, can I go stay over at a friend's house? Well, depending on her mode, her state is going to depend the answer you get back, right? So we're going to just jump out here into the app bar. And this is why I do like, pushing these out into different files because they can get a little big. But for this example, I'm just going to keep everything all nice and neat. And we're going to say actions. You notice how this takes a list of widgets, but it doesn't give you the actual code you need. So you need to say widget. And there we go. So we're making a list of widgets here. And then we're going to say, what could we put in here? Well, we could put just about anything we want because it's a widget. So we can even say like new text. We'll just say la 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 la. And let's do that. Save that, flip back over. Uh-oh, didn't like that. Oh, it's because I got that in there. There we go. You can see there's our text up here, la 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 la. Now, what that really means is we can put anything we want up there because everything is a widget. So let's just start putting things in there. Let's say we're going to say new icon button. And notice how it asks for an icon and pressed. So there's two properties that we're going to have to fill in. We really don't have to because they're null, but it would probably be a good idea if we want any sort of real functionality here. New icon. And then we're going to say icons dot, and then we have tons and tons and tons of icons to choose from here. I'm just going to grab some at random. I'm going to say like add alert. And then on pressed, we actually want to give this a function. All right, so here we're just going to say, and if you're wondering what this is doing, this is basically saying, hey, use this function and call this code. Now, notice the syntax here is a little bit different. We're saying press, semicolon, and then we have this anonymous function. Here's our scope brackets. We've talked about scope before. And here is the code we are using now. Notice the underscore, meaning this is a private method. You can't call this directly out of the class. And then here we're just going to print the message. That way we can see what's going on. And we're going to grab this a few times. Uh-oh, what's going on here? I forgot my commas. Now, some things to note right off the bat is A, we're sending it an array of widgets. B, the icon we chose is over on the left here. Gives us a nice little preview of what we're going to do here. And if you're wondering how these icons actually got into the application, well, they're included. That's right. You heard me correct. They're included. I don't want print. I want to say people. Is there a people? There is a people. So you can see how we have like an alert, a print, and a people. And if we actually run this, I'm going to stop it and just rebuild the whole thing. I was seeing some errors popping up there. I just wanted to rebuild the whole thing, make sure it's going to work here. All right, so we've got our beautiful little icons, and let's say print pressed and people pressed. I like pressing people. People piss me off sometimes, so I like pressing them. All right, so we had our hot reload, and let's just click this. You can see nothing happens. So, I mean, on the screen nothing happens, but we can see here we're getting a lot of action. And what's going on under the hood is we're actually reading directly off the device, and there's our print statements. Print pressed, people pressed. That gives you a good way of telling what's going on in the application. So what we want to do now is when we click one of these, this guy right here will update. That's called application state. So far we haven't actually done anything with state. So because we're calling this method, we know that we can do some things. The first thing we want to do is actually change a variable, which we're going to change this my state. And let's actually do this. So what we're doing now is the child in here of the center is going to be the my state variable. So you can see it's now blank because we have absolutely nothing in my state. And let's just type in no state. That way it's pretty obvious what's going on here. I didn't actually like that. Let's rebuild it just because I want you to see that that variable equals no state. And what we're going to have to do once this is built and gets up and going is we're going to actually have to call something called set state. And what set state does, yeah, you can see now there's no state and nothing's changing because we haven't changed anything yet. But what set state's going to do is it's going to set the state of this variable. I mean, for example, if we just say my state equal test. Actually, let's set it to the actual message. Let's see what happens here. Hot reload should have taken. I'm going to reload it anyways. And we're going to just, you see how nothing's happening. We're even going to kill the application and restart it. I know it takes a little while to recompile, but we're going to push it back out here just so that we can see that nothing's happening. Give it just a second. It should pop up. So there's no state and nothing's changing. Now we are changing the variable under the hood, and we can test that by actually doing this. See, our print is still working. You can see how there's print pressed down here, there's alert pressed up there. So we know that variable is actually changing, but the state is not changing. That's what I'm really getting at here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say set state, and you notice how it calls out a function. So what we're going to say is maybe. There we go. Just going to make a simple little anonymous function in here. And in our set state, we're going to actually update the state. This is going to be a little confusing because it's literally the same thing that we've just done. We just did this. Set state takes, and this is a little difficult to explain, so bear with me, but there is a memory map under the hood called state. And what set state does is says, hey, find the key that has this variable and set the value. Unless you do that, the state's not actually going to change. So let's run our app again, see what happens now. And while this is compiling, because it's not there yet, basically we have our material app. In our material app, we have a scaffold. You need the scaffold to kind of build things up. In the scaffold, we have the app bar and we have the body. The app bar, we have 3 icon buttons. Each button has a built-in icon that we can preview over on the left, and it's calling this pressed method. And then in the body, we have a container, which has a child of center, which has a child of text, which is actually reading the my state variable, which is right up here. We're changing that, you guessed it, in the set state. So you see how we have no state, now we have alert press, now we have print press, now we have people pressed. This is needed because if you go like this and you just kind of jump over to a different program and then kind of jump back, you can see the state is saved. If you didn't have the set state, that would blank out and everything would go right back to default, which if you've ever worked with any sort of like Android programming before using Android Studio, you've noticed that right off the bat, how you have to load the state automatically. Well, or you have to load it manually, where this is all loaded automatically for you. I have to say, this is a lot easier to work with than some other things that I've worked with, such as like MobX and Redux and things of that. Redux just broke my brain. I must have spent 2 weeks playing with different applications trying to get it to work correctly, and I absolutely hated Redux. MobX was a little better, but I think this is really fluid, really simple. So while we're on the topic, because I did say we're going to work with the app bar here, what kind of things can we put in the app bar? I mean, we know that we can put text in here. We can put icon buttons. You can see it. Well, maybe you can't see it because it's under slow mode. I hate that little slow mode ribbon. Let me move that up here. You can see there's our text. Let's try to add a raised button. Why not? Whoops. So there's our raised button. And what we want to do here is we want to say, we just want some text on there. And we've done this before. I think we had it in the body, actually. But what we want to do now is actually just put it in that app bar. And I don't think we actually made the button work in the last tutorial, so let's make this work. I'm going to call this Super Button of Doom. Why not? It's been a Monday. Build that, and you can see now we have our text, we have our little icons, and we have our Super Button of Doom. So you can put pretty much any widget up in the app bar. It's not really restricted like it is in some platforms. And you notice how that the text actually puts these little dots or these ellipticals in there. And we can rotate the device. And you can see how it automatically rotates with it. And then it expands it back out. So it's pretty neat the way this works. And we can do some really cool things. So there's our Super Button of Doom. And that's it for this tutorial. Some quick notes: if you want the source code, you can go out to my website, voidrealms.com, click on tutorials, click on GitHub, and it takes you right out to the actual tutorials. And I've got many, many other tutorials in other languages. If you're so inclined, feel free to donate. My website's 100% run off your donations. And if you're still listening, you're one of the cool people, be sure to join the Void Realms Facebook group. There is, I think, approaching on 1,800 other programmers out there, all walks of life. We can definitely help you out with your projects. If you email me directly, I'll try to get back to you, but it's probably going to take several months at this point. My inbox is just annihilated. That's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this educational and entertaining. Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the 24th Flutter tutorial. I'm going to apologize in advance. I have a bit of a cold and my throat is pretty sore, so I may have to pause the video in certain points. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to actually build a demo application. So the first thing we want to do is import the Flutter material, package. Like I just said, man, this cold is just kicking my butt. Let's see what cold medicine and coding can really do here. So I'm going to run our app. I'm going to say whoopsie. We're going to kind of take what we've learned so far and add a few things here too. So this is going to be a little bit of an adventure for all of us. All right, so we've got our My App, which extends stateful widget, and we're going to have to do some things with that. What we're really going to be doing here is we're going to be building out a basic login. And when I say basic login, I mean very basic login. So we're going to say I need dinner ideas. I have a cold and nothing really sounds good. I have like this really hot soup that I've been eating, and I love it, but I'm getting kind of sick of it. It's like if you had pizza every single day, you know, you'd just be like, I'm done with pizza, forget this. All right, so we're just gonna make a new material app. Maybe, that's the cold meds right there. I'm gonna blame every mistake in this tutorial on the cold meds. And my voice is cracking, so I sound like I'm going through second puberty here. All right, there we go. And we're gonna make a login demo, and then we're just gonna make our app bar. Whoops, can't do app bar yet because we need a home with a scaffold. There we go. Friends don't let friends have colds and write code. Man, this is just going slow. All right. Whoa, new flow. What the heck? There we go. New app bar. Jeez. And let's get this. Let's actually do this the right way here. Sorry, I was kind of multitasking there. I was looking at my phone, taking a drink of water, and writing code all at the same time. That takes some skill, my friends, let me tell you. All right, so let's actually change this to please log in. Okay. So really all we've got there is we've got app bar, and now we're going to add some actions here. And then we've got an array of widgets, and we've done this before, so this is really nothing new. We're going to say icon button, and the icon is going to be just a new icon. We'll say icons.home. And then we're not going to mess with onPressed yet. And then the magic of copy and paste. Let's say exit to app. And we're not going to mess with that onPressed yet. We're just going to start our emulator. Let that start up while we're typing away here. You can see it starting in the background. All right, so what is this? Missing concrete implementation of create. Oh, yeah. Let's do this instead. Don't know why I keep doing that. Extends stateful widget. There we go. And then we can make this extend state. All right, this will be a little better. My app state. And then we're going to say create state. My app state. One too many equal signs. There we go. That should be a little better. All right, so our emulator is up. We're just going to start this application and kick it off to emulator just to see what it looks like and get a basic idea of what we're going to be doing in this tutorial. Now that we've got a kind of the skeleton of the application all set up and ready to go. As soon as this thing finishes building. All right, there we go. So what we've got here is just a please log in with our app bar two icons. They're grayed out because we don't have the on press filled out. And then we've got a home and then a log out button. And what we're going to have here is a basic username and password login. And if we're not logged in, it's going to default to the username and password login. If we are logged in, it's going to show the settings screen. Kind of like a poor man's way of password protecting your application. So let's do that. All right, so what we need to do now is actually flesh these out a little bit more. Let's go into our lib, and we want to create two new files here. We'll create login.dart, and let's create settings.dart. And we're going to flesh this one out first. Import package Flutter material. Extends, and we're going to make stateless widget because we don't want this tracking the state here. And we're going to say override. Yeah, I don't know what it is about Michigan and this weather, man. Every time it gets cold, I get sick, which sucks because Michigan's always cold, so I'm almost always sick. It's actually not true. Girlfriend's been sick, so I'm sure I caught something from her. You know, that's usually not a good way of saying something about your girlfriend. I caught something from my girlfriend, but anyway, you know what I mean. So we're just going to center in a new child, center in a text, and the text is going to be the child of the center. All right, and then we're going to say settings here. Nothing real fancy about this. We just want to show something on the screen. Well, let's just jump back into here. Give me just a second here. Sorry about that. I had to get a drink of water. All right, so we got the package, login app, and we're going to say settings.dart. And down here, we want the end of the app bar. We're going to actually say the body next. And let's jump over to our emulator here. We're going to rerun this. And while that's building, we're just going to fingers crossed. So this is basically what it's going to look like after we log in. What we're going to do next is we're going to actually build the functionality for these buttons and the login. The login is going to be a little bit different because we're going to actually make a custom component in Dart, I should say in Flutter, and we're going to have it use what's called a callback. A callback would be like this right here, on pressed. We're going to actually build one of those into our custom component. And that was a little tricky for me at first. It took me a while to figure that out. So lucky for you, I actually did figure it out. I should say lucky for me. It kind of took a while. It was kind of making me mad, to be honest with you. I was like, what the heck? All right, so we've got our title. Now what we want to do here is we want to say, whoops. And we want to probably help if I did that one correctly, huh? There we go. So as soon as we flesh those things in, of course it didn't pick it up, but those are now enabled. We'll have to stop and restart the app. I'm just going to let it compile while I'm typing here. Uh-oh. That's why it didn't pick it up. It's missing our semicolon in there. There we go. All right, so, and of course, yeah, now it's complaining about the semicolon here, so let's push that back out. Suddenly, magically, it works, and these buttons now work. They don't actually do anything, so what we're going to do is we're going to say logging out. There we go. Just so that we can see these actually do work. You can see it's now printing out, and it's printing out again. So we got home, go home, and log out. So those buttons are working. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually flesh out this login component. And this is going to be a little bit of typing and a little bit of explanation, so bear with me here. So we want our package, Flutter material, and we want our import package, Flutter widgets. There we go. And we want import foundation. What we're going to do now is we're going to say class login extends. We're going to make a stateless widget. And what we want to do here is we want to actually make the constructor, and we want to have a few properties in here. So we're going to say const login and let's break this out a bit. And we're going to make a required property here. And we're going to say this is going to be the callback handler. Or I shouldn't say the callback handler. It's going to be the actual callback. And then we're just going to add the key. If you're wondering what a key is, key helps identify the actual component. Just adding that in case anybody uses this in the future here. And I actually screwed up a little bit here. There we go. That way it'll turn that into our name parameters. All right, so we want to void callback. And this will allow other people to use this component and call back. And what a callback is exactly what we've worked with in the past here. For example, this icon button on pressed, we're telling it to call back or go to this function. That's exactly what we're doing. We're building this into our component. A little bit of an advanced topic, and it took me a while to kind of figure it out. But it's actually pretty well rewarding. All right, so now that we've got that, we're going to say static final text editing controller. We're going to make a new text editing controller. What a text editing controller does is it allows us to work with a text field, and you'll see that here in just a minute. I realize some of this is probably looks like ancient algebra or voodoo magic or something. It'll be pretty clear once we get there, though. So we're going to make getters for the username and for the password through the magic of copy and paste here. So the controllers interface with the text field, which we haven't actually worked with before. So we're going to go ahead and build that out now. And this is just the build of a method that we've seen before. And whenever you see build, think render. So what we're going to be doing at this point is actually rendering. So we're going to say return new, and we're going to say column. And we want an array here. So what we're going to add now is, you guessed it, new text fields. And text fields are a little bit different than some other platforms out there. You've got to work with them a little differently. So we're going to add in the controller, and we're going to add in the username controller. And then we're going to say decoration equal new input decoration. And in here we're going to say hint text equals, gives the user a little bit of an understanding of what they're supposed to be doing here. Just going to copy and paste that. And then enter a password. Now, because password fields are, well, passwords, we don't really want to give them the ability to see what we're typing for very long. So what we have to do now is actually say, whoops, obscure text is true. I don't know if that's very viewable. There it is. Obscure text is true. And then, of course, the final thing we want to do is a new raised button. And the child of this is going to be cannot seem to do that today. There we go. All right, and in the onPress, we want to actually call our void callback on submit. So looking at this code, really what's going on here is we have a stateless widget. Remember, we're not going to hold the state because it's stateless. We have in the constructor, geez, cold medicine, we have a key which would help identify this, but we're not really using it in this tutorial. I just wanted to show you can do it. We have a required parameter, and we're using this on submit. On submit is actually a void callback, meaning we're expecting this to call a function somewhere else in some other code. We have text editing controllers, both of them for username and password, and those are being used by these text fields. There really isn't a super easy way of getting the text directly out of the text field. You would use either the onChanged or the onSubmit. And what the text editing controller does is it just holds that into a variable, which we can grab using the getters. So we have the user.text and the password.text. Whew, that is a lot of explanation, a lot of typing. That took me a while to figure out. Now we've got to try to figure out how to kind of comb all this together, if you will. So let's push this back out, make sure there's nothing wrong with the app. It runs as expected. Now, you notice how we've got this new settings right here. Well, we want to kind of replace that a little bit. What we need to do is actually have it so it shows a specific screen. Now, I want to say that this is not the correct way of doing this. You should use routes and navigation, but we haven't gotten to routes and navigations in our tutorial yet, so we're going to use this method. So for more complex apps, please use routes and navigation. Excuse my voice, it's kind of getting a little raspy, but all right, so let's see what we got here. I need to pause the video for just 1 second. All right, sorry about that. I had to get a drink of water. I was really losing my voice there. So now that we have that, we need to do here, say widget screen. And notice how we are not declaring it, or I'm sorry, we're not setting the value of that. We're also going to make a few other things. Well, we can't because we have not imported it yet. Hold on a second. There we go. going to say settings. I'm going to review this video once I'm done, and if my voice just keeps going in and out too bad, I may redo this whole thing. We'll just see how this works when it's all done. Usually I don't actually watch the videos after I do them. Alright, so you notice how the first thing it does is it says, hey, for the login class, it wants a void callback on submit. And you remember the login class is this guy that we just typed out here. It's because of that required parameter right here that it's actually automatically putting that in there. And then we're going to say and let's just say that may not be what I want here. I am kind of deviating from my notes a little bit here. So for the body, because that's going to change, we're going to use a variable. We're not going to just hard code it and say new. We're going to say during the creation of this, the screen is going to be settings, and as we shift around in this code, it will actually change. So we've got our widgets, we've got our login, and we've got our setting here. Now we want to actually flesh out this on submit. All right, and then we're just going to print out that, hey, we're trying to log in here. Now, if you're wondering where you're getting the username and password from, we are creating an instance of this login class, this guy that we just typed out. And we have getters, username and password, and that's where we're getting those. And they're just reading the text value from, or I should say the text property from the text editing controllers. So that's how you're getting those. All right, now, whoopsie, we need to actually set this. There we go. Let's just stop this, rebuild it, make sure we don't have any errors. While that's rebuilding, I'm going to get a quick drink of water because my voice is going out again. All right, so compiled as expected. Nothing's really going on here because we haven't done anything. So we're going to change that. And we're going to get to the heart of this thing and make it work here. All right, so we're going to set authenticated. And what this is going to do is this is going to set state. And you remember from our previous conversations, when you set state, well, you're setting the state of this screen and in thus part of the application. I'm trying to figure out what to get my girlfriend for Christmas. She gave me a cold and a sore throat. I'm wondering what I should get her in exchange. I don't know. Maybe I'll get her something that makes a lot of noise at like 3 in the morning or something. Paybacks, you know. All right, so what set authenticated is going to do is it's going to set the state. We're going to say if it's off, then we're going to set it a certain way. Otherwise, we want to set it a different way, meaning we want the state of the application to change depending on whether or not they're authenticated. So we're going to set our screen to, we're going to say and then we're just going to grab this guy right here, So if we're not authenticated, we want to set the login screen, and then we're going to say, please log in. All right, so now that we've got the set authenticated method, you can see how it's grayed out. We need to actually use it because it's currently unused. To do that, we want to actually say, so log out. And then we want to, for the go home, go home's going to be a little bit different because if you're already authenticated, you need to actually go in here. So let's say go home. So now we need another variable here. See, this is what happens when I go off script. I really shouldn't do that, but so we're going to start off not being authenticated here. All right, so if that, well, actually, let's do this. Kind of got lost in my museum there. Cold medicine made me space out. That's what I'm going to blame it on. There we go. So really go home doesn't really do anything. It's kind of a pointless button. I'm not a big fan of pointlessness, but so let's save this. Let's recompile the whole thing, make sure there aren't any major issues, and see what happens here. It's still showing settings. Let's figure out where we goofed. So here's our screen. Well, that would probably be why right here. All right, so we want to start with the login. Let's push this back out. All right, so now it's displaying, enter username, enter password, and then submit. And if we just enter something, that's not going to work. And then hit submit. You can see that it actually tried to, right here, log in with blah, blah. So what we need to do now is actually say, hey, can they log in? So we'll say, and do not ever, ever, ever do this in a production application. This is just for demo. You will get fired, they will burn your village to the ground, and, well, everybody on the planet will die. Realistically, you would want to go out and authenticate against a database or something of that nature. We just haven't simply gotten to the point in the tutorials yet. So you want to set the authenticated to true at this point, because you have now authenticated them. So let's kill that, push it back out. I don't know why I do that. I really don't need to. I could have just hot reloaded it. Give it a good build, make sure everything works. All right, so we're going to just enter some garbage here. And bang, you can see how it tried to do it, log in with Q and R, but of course we didn't have that. So let's actually say, darn you, caps lock, get off there, user, and let's delete this, and because we successfully logged in, you can see there's our settings screen. We hit home and it just goes right back. We can log off, log in, things of that nature. Now, home really isn't working the way I expected it to. Let's look at this. If it's authenticated, go to settings otherwise. So let's evaluate this little guy here. Actually, let's just do this. I want to see what's going on under the hood there. All right, home faults. So let's evaluate this again. All right, so we've logged in with username and password. Let's click on home and see what's going on here. That's why this is still false for some reason. I bet we did not set it in our state. We didn't. See, that's what the problem here is. Really, we don't need to do a set state here, but I'm just going to do it anyways. We really don't need it because it's not part of the application state, if you will. It's just a variable that we're using in the background, but I'm going to set it in state anyways. All right, so now when we run this, we will actually and ta-da, there's our settings. If we hit home, it does nothing because we're currently authenticating. You see where it says home, go home true. The premise of this being if you were to time out or something in the background, you'd hit home and bang, it would just say nope. And we can log out. And if we hit home, see now it just says, hey, you're not logged in. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you found this educational and entertaining. Some key notes here. This is not, I want to say, the best way of handling the situation, but it's where we're at tutorial wise. So definitely read up on how to extend a stateless widget with required properties and things of that nature. Another thing you should know is I actually ran into a bit of trouble on this, and I had to go out to the support and I had to go out to live discussion with the Flutter engineers, and they helped me a little bit. I kind of figured it out on my own while I was waiting, but I just wanted to put that out there that you can really get in here and ask some really great questions. I think our conversation's actually in here. Yeah, right here. So do not flood these poor folks with all of your little nitnoid questions. For that, I would actually recommend going out to the Void Realms Facebook group, joining up and asking questions in there. And for the source code for this and all other tutorials, go out to voidrealms.com, click on tutorials, and go to GitHub. Leave me some feedback. If my voice is absolutely horrible, I'll redo this whole video. All right, thanks. Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the 25th Flutter tutorial. In the last tutorial, Flutter 24, we showed a couple key concepts, but one thing that we really kind of drilled in on was how to change a widget in the body of a scaffold. Now, that's actually not the correct way to navigate around an application. It's just a very simple way of switching that widget out. So one thing I want to cover today is how to navigate through an application. Now, when I say navigate, what am I talking about? If you go to the Flutter website, and I have to apologize, I still have a cold, so if my voice cracks or I cough, it might get a little nasty, but go to the Flutter website, routing and navigation, and read up on core concepts. You'll need to understand two main concepts, a route and a navigator. A route is exactly what it sounds like, a route going from point A to point B. You're going to go from your house to your friend's house. How are you getting there? And let's say you want to go back from your friend's house back to your house. How are you getting there? That's really what a route does. Navigator actually takes those routes and makes them do things. Makes your application move from point A to point B. And you can see kind of a simple example here. And we're going to build something as always. So we've got our little application up and it does absolutely nothing. It's magnificent, isn't it? So what we're going to do here is we are going to make a new material app. In that material app, we're just going to say the title. Whoops. I don't want to call it router. Let's call it navigation. Now, a couple things you should note right off the bat. We need to put our routes here, but our routes don't exist yet. So if you type routes, it's going to want to know some things. So we're going to say we need a comma instead of a period. That's why that's freaking out on us there. And in there is where we will put our routes. But as I said, they don't exist yet. We're getting to that point. Now we need our home, and for now we're just going to say null. Let's build this out here. So first thing we want to do is create a new, and I like putting a directory, and I like saying screens. But you can kind of do this just really however you want. We're going to import the material.dart. All I know is I have had this cold for about a week. My girlfriend gave it to me, and I am so over this cold right now. It's just like, it's one of those that started like in your nose and then started working its way down. I like didn't even have a voice yesterday. It was ridiculous. So if I sound horrible today, I mean, yesterday was just really bad. All right, so we've got our build method. Remember, whenever I say build, it means render. So we're going to actually render something onto the screen here. We're going to return a new scaffold. All right, now in our scaffold, we're going to say @var now we want a body. And this is what we were swapping out in our previous tutorial here. But this is what we're doing today, routing and navigation, is the actual correct way to do it. Doesn't mean you can't swap out. I mean, it works as designed. It just means this is probably the most efficient way, especially when you start getting into a lot of different things. And you'll see why here in just a bit. So we're going to say edge insets all. Let's say 32.0, just because I really like 32. And then child, new center. And this is a pretty typical design pattern here, where you'll have a container for your padding, and then you're going to center something, and then you'll have a column, and in the column you'll have a series of widgets. And in this case, our widgets are going to be a text box, or I'm sorry, a text field. Not text field, just a text. And a raised button. All right, so we have our on pressed, and what we need to do here is we need to fill this in a little bit. Now this is the actual route, and we're going to be working with the navigator. So what we're going to say here is make our anonymous function navigator dot of, because we want the context that we're currently in. Think of the context of, it's like a context of a conversation. If I say I'm going out, but the context is I'm talking to my wife, well, that might not be too well. But if I say I'm going out, the context is to my friends, then hey, that might be a good thing. So really the context is what context is the application currently looking at. And it gets really deep. But basically what it means is, how is the application currently running? What is currently on the screen? And it gets really deep. We're not there yet. So just kind of, drink the Kool-Aid and just agree for a moment. So what we're doing here is we're saying when the raise button is pressed, the navigator of the current context is going to push named. Now what that means is there's push and pop. Push means like you're going to push something onto a table. You're going to push a new screen out there. Pop means you're going to pull it away. Why is it called push and pop? Well, those are actually, legacy terms from the old C++ days that have just kind of carried over into every language out there in existence. So we also need our little semicolon there. Now, push named, this is the actual route. The route does not exist yet, and we will build that here in a second. But we're going to have this on every single screen here. So that is kind of the basic design pattern, and I'm going to actually start my virtual device here. I'm going to start a different device. I'm going to use the Pixel XL, shiny and new. Let that thing boot up. All right, so while that is booting up, we are going to just copy that, make a new file. We'll call this second.dart, and we'll make yet another file, third.dart. My phone made the weirdest noise. I don't know what is up with this. I need a whole new phone. All right, so second, and we'll call this second. This is the second screen, and we want this to go to the third screen. Pretty simple. I mean, it's exactly the same. Now, the third screen, we're going to do something a little bit different here. We're going to paste that in. Spell third correctly is what we're going to do. And let's say on this one, we're going to actually just copy and paste this. All right, so on the third screen, what we want to do is show how to go backwards. So let's say we want to go backwards in time, and we actually didn't put any text in these, did we? Well, boogie. Here, let's fix these real quick while I'm in here thinking about it. There we go. And there's our raise button. Let's fix that in our second one too. All right, now let's actually just wipe both of these out and redo them. All right, so back to where we were. We want this button to be the back button, not the back button, geez. Back button. And instead of push named, we want to pop. Pop's just going to go backwards. Now this one we want to go back to the home screen. And this one gets a little bit different. And you'll see why here in just a second. Actually, let's just fix this up and run it real quick, and then I'll show you exactly what's going on here. All right, so we're going to actually import a few things here. Import package. All right, so we're going to import those screens. Now in our routes, we need to actually flesh these routes out. And we do that using this syntax right here. Meaning we're going to give it the route, say home. Build context, and we're going to give it the context. So basically what this is saying is when the home route is called, /home, and you can name this pretty much whatever you want. I just like using these /home, then it's going to create a new home under the current build context. That may not be 1000% accurate, but I think you get the gist of it. And then we're going to make our third. All right, so we've got that. We've got our little emulator up and running with a whole ton of apps on there. Let's save this, give it a good build, push it out to the emulator, and see what happens. Now, the concept of a route is actually a little more involved, especially in other frameworks. Routes can get really kind of messy, and you end up tracking a lot of the stuff under the hood yourself. Some frameworks don't even have the concept of a navigator, and you actually have to kind of build your own navigator class, which is a royal pain. This actually is pretty seamless, and I like it. Oh, what is this? Home. Oh, yeah, we didn't set the home, that's why. All right, so hot reload should pick that up. There we go. So this is our home screen. If we hit next, you can see how it takes us to, this is the second screen, and we have this little back arrow here, and we can click back and it goes to the home. That's called I think that's called intrinsic or internal navigation. I don't remember, but in part that's the navigator class helping us out here, I think. I could be dead wrong. That might be part of the app bar, but let's just go with it. So anyways, you can click next, it goes to second. You can click next again, it goes to third. Now, if I click back, it goes back to second. So I can go second, third, back and forth, back and forth. Now, this time, if I want to go home, you see how there's home, but it has this little arrow up here, which takes us back to third. Well, let's say we want to get rid of that arrow. Then we need to do something a little bit different here. So what we need to do is let's go back into third. And instead of push named, what we're going to do is we're going to dot, and this is a little bit of a long one. It's called push named and remove until. Wow, that's a long one. So what this bad boy does, ow, I just hit my funny bone and that was not funny. Gosh, and here I'm all worried about coughing and I'm like jacking up my elbow. So here what we need to do is actually just say route, and we want a dynamic. Let me see if I can push this over here a little bit. That way you can actually see what's going on. So what we're doing here is we're saying the route of a type dynamic, which is actually a route variable, is false. So basically we're just going to keep going until we get to the home screen. So what this thing really does is it's going to push through that whole route list. It's going to say bang, bang, bang until it gets to home, and then it's just going to remove everything else. Hence the removed until. All right, so let's hot reload this. Actually, let's push it back out. Next, next, back works as expected. Home, bang, there's suddenly no arrow. So that is what the push named and removed until does, in case you ever need that functionality. And then it just works as expected. So that is routing, and that is how you would get around from, I should say routing and navigation, that is how you would get around from one screen to the next. Now, some things to kind of pay attention to for design patterns is you'll notice that each screen is building an entire new app bar in itself. That's kind of just the way I've done it. And then what I do is I take the app bar and I put it into its own special class. That way every single one of these uses the exact same app bar, and then the app bar is rebuilt every single time. If you don't do that, one thing that I've noticed is you'll get double app bars. Like you'll have home here and you'll have another blue bar underneath it. So you kind of got to be careful about that. This is just one of many ways to navigate around your application, but it's probably one of the simpler ones, and I wanted to cover it first. So I have not coughed or sneezed the whole time. I'm very proud of that fact. Give me some feedback in the video once I post it. Let me know if you guys like these or if you don't like them. I'm really liking Flutter. It's just very fluid. I worked with a couple other mobile frameworks, and I've got to just say, it once you get over the Dart learning curve, it actually kind of thinks the way I want it to. And I'm really impressed with, even in alpha, just how easy this is to work with. I'm kind of can't wait to get into some more complex topics here. So that's it for this tutorial. For the source code for this and all other tutorials, go out to my website, voidrealms.com. Click on GitHub, and it will take you right out to the tutorials. There's the Flutter tutorials. You can just clone all those down to your hard drive. And feel free to join the Void Realms Facebook group. There's 1,700 and counting programmers out there, all walks of life. And the site is funded 100% by your donations. So if you've got an extra couple bucks laying around, please feel free to donate. Help keep this site up and running. That's it. Thank you for watching. Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the 26th Flutter tutorial. I still have a bit of a cold, so forgive me if my voice cracks a little bit. Today we're going to be covering the snack bar. Snack bar is interesting because it allows a lightweight message to be displayed on the screen briefly for the user. It just lets them know that something's going on. I wanted to cover this and maybe the alert dialog before we really start diving into other tutorials. That way when we use them, you're not mystified as to what's actually going on. So I've got a blank project here, and we're just going to start typing away. We're going to import the material design, make our main function. We want the stateful widget. Then we want to create a state for our stateful widget. I always ask, why do people like watching me type? It's so much easier just to say, hey, here's a finished project and look at what we've done. But people like watching me make mistakes. I guess it makes them feel a little bit better because everybody makes mistakes. And a couple people have said they like listening to my thought process on how I get from point A to point B. And I get that because sometimes I walk into a application's code and I'm like, what in the hell is this? All right, so we're going to make our new material app. And we're going to say home equal new, you guessed it, my app. Why is that complaining? Oh yeah, cold medicine. There we go. You will see many, many typos while I'm on cold medicine. Point in case, can't even type create state here. Alright, so we're just simply fleshing out a state of our application here. We need a state because, well, we're pretty much going to have to need one for almost every application we do. Every time you interact with the screen and you're going to save some sort of data, you got to save that in the state. So first thing we're going to do is create our variable here. Then we are going to, you guessed it, do our override. And this is kind of just boilerplate at this point. We've done this a couple times, actually 25 other times. Let's go ahead and build context. There we go. So we've got the bare bones of our application here, and we're going to flesh this out. Now, really what we're going to have here, once we get this going, is we're going to have an app bar followed by a text box followed by a button. And when we click the button, the snack bar will appear down at the bottom. So let's go ahead and actually build out this application. New app bar. There we go. I hate having a cold. It's like I'm like here, but I'm not here, and I think I'm doing the right thing, and then I'm not. Like the other day, I went to make toast, and I put the bread in the refrigerator and stood there for like 5 minutes waiting for it to get toasted, and then it occurred to me it was just getting cold. So, yeah. All right, so we're adding a container, so if we wanted to put some padding in there, we could. I don't think I'm going to really play around with padding, but just in case somebody downloads this code. And there's our new center, and inside the center we're going to say child, new column, children, and there's our widgets, and we'll say new text field and new raised button. Let's go ahead and run this and see what we got. Just make sure it looks the way we expect it to. And I'm actually pretty amazed. A lot of times I'll build the application and run it just to quote unquote make sure it runs. Part of that is because Flutter's an alpha, but you know, I've never had. I was just going to say I've never had one crash on me, but I guess I just did. What is the problem here? Open again. That didn't work. Lost connection to device. Let's figure out what's going on here. Installing. Syncing files, host new host connection, fatal signal 11. Well, let's look at our code and see what's going on here. Well, let's try debugging this and see what happens. I've actually never had one of these crash on me before. This is interesting. Of course, now it runs. Interesting. Wonder why that crashed. It is working. Alright, well, let's just kill it and rerun it. Raise button, we're going to add in a couple properties here. I was going to say, now I'm a little embarrassed. I was going to say that I'm actually really impressed with the way Flutter's been so far. Even in alpha, I've never had anything crash, but I guess there's a first time for everything. I'm kind of happy that happened while it was on camera here, because it's just kind of interesting to see. Makes me wonder what happened there. Although I'm not sure if that was a problem with Flutter or a problem with my emulator here. A lot of times people are very quick to kind of blame Flutter for its shortcomings when it's in alpha, and the reality is it's really not Flutter's problem. Alright, so let's get rid of that. I want to run this one more time just to make sure. Apologize for the delay, but that made me a little nervous that it did crash. It's working. Alright, well, we'll just continue on then. If you're new to mobile programming, don't get discouraged by that. I've worked with React Native before, and it is a little glitchy at times. I'll write code, and I swear that it'll work. I'd bet my life on it, and of course it doesn't work. It crashes, and then I have to figure out some weird error message. It's just kind of the state of mobile programming at this point. So the first thing we want to do is actually track that variable. So, yeah. And we're going to do that through the set state. There we go. So we're just going to take this onChange, and we're going to monitor the onChanged in the text field. Whoops, better put this in here. There we go. So when onChange is triggered in the text field, we're going to pump out that variable to our onChanged value. You could very easily take the set state and put this right here, but I wanted it to be very obvious what's going on, and I wanted to kind of break that out without making it look really ugly down here. Alright, so we're going to show the snack bar in this one. To do that, we have to add a little bit of magic here. And this is going to take a little bit of discussion, and admittedly I'm not an expert in this either, so this is kind of the blind leading the blind here. We need to make what's called a global key, and you see how it's a generic type. So its global key extends the state of a stateful widget. So we're going to say global key of the scaffold state, and we're going to call this scaffold state. All right, so first off, what is a global key? What is even a key? Well, a key is a way of identifying something. A global key is a unique key across the entire application. That being said, there can only be one of these scaffold states across the entire app. So let's actually add this in here. And we're going to use that. And then in our show snack bar, we're going to say, actually, let me modify this just a little bit here. We don't want to show a blank snack bar here, so if it's empty, then we're just going to get out of there. All right, so we're going to say scaffold state, current state, and then we're going to show the snack bar. First thing it wants, of course, is a snack bar. So we're going to say new snack bar. And then we've got some content in there. And I'm going to break this down a little bit so it's a little easier to read. And in here, we're just going to say new text. And we're going to say the value that we're trying to display. Let's actually put this on the same line there. There we go. And then on here, when we press the button, we're going to say show snack bar. And we're going to use that text variable that we're holding in state. All right, let's run this out. And there is our snack bar at the bottom. If our keyboard was hidden, it would be down here at the bottom. So that's really a snack bar. It's just a little instant notification on-screen display and let the user know something happened. So you could say something like if you were in a settings dialog and they click the save button, you could just say like settings save. That way they know something happened. It's unique to the application because we're using a global key. So I believe, I haven't tested this, but I believe that if we were to use the navigator and switch from one screen to another, that state would, or that snack bar would still show up. It wouldn't automatically disappear. But I haven't fully tested that yet, so don't quote me. So that's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this educational and entertaining. The source for this and all other tutorials will be out on my website, voidrooms.com. You just go out here and click on this big GitHub link. It takes you right out to tutorials. And if you're so inclined, join the Voidrums Facebook group. There's 1,700 other programmers out there that we can definitely help you out with your coding problems. Hey everybody, it's Brian. Welcome to the 27th Flutter tutorial. Today we'll be going over the alert dialog. This is part of the material design widgets. And like the snack bar that we covered in the previous tutorial, I'm covering it now so that if I use it in future tutorials, you understand what's going on. So there's really no black magic or voodoo magic or whatever going on here. Should be noted, there are other types of alerts such as the bottom sheet and the simple dialog and the expansion panel that we aren't going to cover until future tutorials. I just wanted to focus on these two for now. So let's go ahead and jump into a blank project here. Going to import material design. Whoops. We're going to extend the stateful widget. And I'm still, like I've said in the past few tutorials, got a cold. So I've been recording these over a few days, but man, this cold just will not die. We're going to create the state of this. Oops, not new. And we're going to shove my app out is the home of the material app, and then in here see, I'm trying to get healthy as fast as possible because I want to go out and see the new Star Wars before it leaves the theaters. It's been out for a little while now. All right, so in here, it's going to be the same design as we had in the last tutorial, where we're going to have the text, or we're going to have an app bar, we're going to have a text box, and then we're going to have a button here. So let's go ahead and kill that existing demo, and let's go ahead and type all this out. Oops. Plus sign. Boy, that's an interesting operator. There we go. Build context. Alright, so we're just going to build that bad boy out here. And we need to actually build our user interface. So, first thing we're going to do here is we're going to say I'm going to return new scaffold. We're going to say alert dialog demo, and then the body, don't know why I did that, there we go, new container, just in case somebody downloads this code and they want to add some padding. I'm not going to really worry about padding myself, but center everything up. Then we've got our widget array here. We're going to say new text field, the new raised button, and let's go ahead and save this. Missing concrete implementation of stateful widget create state. Oh, create start. Derp. Alright, let's go ahead and build this, run it out, make sure this thing actually runs on the device. Grado's resolving dependencies, and we're going to push it out here. And just give it a minute, and it should appear on the device. There we go. So we've got our text field that we can type into, and we've got a button that we need to put some text here. And when we click this, a little alert dialog will pop up here, and we can play with that. Alright, so let's branch this out here. We're going to set the state here. So we need to hold that variable in memory. Or I should say we need to change that variable that's in memory as part of the state. And we're going to use this on change right here. Pump that variable over to our onChange function. Alright, so let's actually Alright, so what we've got so far is basically when the text field is changing, we're going to take the value and pump that through the set state into our text variable here. Now we want to actually show the alert when they click the button. And we're going to use the text variable for that. Now in here, what we need to do is we need to create an alert dialog, but we don't want to show one if it's empty. So we're going to say if value dot is empty, then we're just going to return out alert dialog equal new alert dialog. And you'll get so used to doing that throughout your little career here as a programmer. Alright, so the content of the alert dialog, we want to say new text, and in here we want to say the value, and then we want to set a style here. So let's say style new text style, and we want the font size to be 30.0. That has to be a double, it cannot be an integer. So if you do that, it's going to freak out on you. Alright, so we've got that in there. Now we need to say actions. Oops. And there is our widget array here. What we're going to do for this, and let's actually just run this just so you can see what it looks like here. Did it not run? Oh, probably help if we actually... Did we do that? What was going on here? Oh, I know what we did wrong. We forgot to actually show the dialog. Derp. Not show about dialog. So we want show dialog, and the context will be the application context, and then we want the child to actually be the dialog. Save that, pump this bad boy back out to our device here, and we'll say test. And there is our alert dialog in all its glory. Now, if you're looking at these actions widgets array over here, what we're going to do is we're going to add a list of options here, and then when we click that, we want to know which option was clicked. So let's just get back out of that. And sorry about that, somebody was texting me and it kind of threw me off a little bit here. We need to make an enum here, so we'll say enum my dialog options. Do you want to call these options or actions? Let's call them actions. My dialog action, why not? We'll say yes, no, maybe. Alright, now in here, in our actions for the alert dialog, we have a list of widgets that we want to pump in here. So we're going to just make one widget. We'll make a flat button. Notice how it says on press and child for us. It's very convenient. And then it'll say, let's say, all right, now the on press, we need to actually wire this into a function here. So let's say whoops. We're going to take that enum and we're going to put it in here. And for this, we're just going to print this out. We're going to say print the actual value here. And then dialog result. All right, so let's run this back out to the device. And then we have a yes. And if we click it, nothing happens. Now, actually under the hood, if I could find my, where is it? Too many options. Took me a second to find it, but it's right here in our little Android monitor, right there. Boom. So we selected yes. Let's go ahead and click that a few more times, and you see that it's actually happening in the background here. So that was bloody confusing. I don't know what I got all hung up on there. So we're going to go back in here, and we are going to make a couple of these. And to close that dialog out, we have to go navigator.pop, and we want to pop to the current context. That way it's not going to leave the current screen that we're on. Let's run this again. And we'll say, do you like Flutter? We have yes, no, maybe. So let's look at our little Android monitor here. Pop this back. Where's my emulator? There you are. And if we say yes, you can see that it closes the dialog, and we get this you selected the my dialog.action yes. And from there you could do a switch statement to determine what actually you need to do next. So pretty simple, pretty easy, pretty useful too. I mean, you can do a lot with this. You can do yes, no, maybe. You can put other controls in there. You can put drop downs, things of that nature. Pretty awesome for a very entry level control. Well, I feel I'm losing my voice. This cold's still kicking my butt. So we're going to call this tutorial done. For the source code for this and all other tutorials, visit the tutorials tab on voidrealms.com. Go out to GitHub. And if you're so inclined, go out to the Void Realms Facebook group, where there is 1,700 other programmers out there. All right. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the 28th Flutter tutorial. Today we are going to switch gears a little bit here, and we're going to go down to, where is it, the text field. We've worked with this before, but we haven't really talked about it in depth. So what we're going to do in the next few tutorials is talk about individual widgets. We're going to talk about text field, then probably checkbox and radio box. Or actually, it's just called radio. In other frameworks, it's called radio button or radio box, depending on, but in Flutter, it's just called radio. Anyways, so today, text field. Let's just go ahead, and we got a little demo project. Let's get that out of there. Let's open a new emulator. Let that bad boy load up while we're typing. All right, so let's import our material package. And I'm probably going to deviate from my example code that I have on the other side of the screen here, just because I don't really like it. Sometimes that gets me into some trouble, but we'll just see what happens here. Still, gosh, this cold, man. I'm still got this cold. Trying to fight through it. Might be successful, might not. So if my voice cracks a little bit, I haven't actually done tutorials in a while because my voice has been really bad. Just forgive me. All right, so we're going to extend the stateful widget. And then whoopsie. All right, so we're going to extend the state of the My app. Had a lot of good feedback about Flutter. Even for alpha, people seem to genuinely love this. I actually really like Flutter. It's kind of hard to describe unless you've really worked with it for a little bit. It's got a lot of things that other frameworks are really, really lacking. even though it's just an alpha, and I think there's going to be a lot of really good promising things coming out of this. Create start, geez, create state. Alright, so we've got kind of our boilerplate here. Let's just finish this up real quick. I may start the tutorials with what we have now, that we don't spend 2 minutes watching me type this over and over and over again. Just let me know in the comments how you guys feel about that, because I know that sometimes I try to just have pre-written code and everybody's like, no, don't do that, we like watching you type. I think you guys just like seeing my horrible spelling mistakes here. Alright, so return new. We're going to return new scaffold. And bang, we can actually start our program now. So as always, we've got our kind of generic pattern here where we do run app. We're creating a new material app. The material app's home is a my app. My app is a stateful widget. The state of that is the my app state, which of course extends the state of the my app. Seems a little cyclical and a little confusing, but I think we're getting there. Alright, so first thing we need to do is, well, actually, let's work with our state here. So, let's say, what do we want to do? Yeah, why not? Alright, so now that we've got our scaffold up, I'm going to say app bar, new app bar, title, new text. And with the body here, we are going to say new container. Let's get a little bit of padding there, just so we know what's going on here. Whoops. Let's say new center. And then we have our list of widgets that we're going to flesh out here. So the first widget we're going to add here is a new text field. And a, whoopsie, new raised button. That way we know that this is a text field demo, not a text demo. There we go. Alright, so we played around with text field before, and if we actually just run this so we can see what this looks like here. Let me pull my emulator over. Text field is actually pretty interesting little control. There's a lot of functionality packed into this bad boy, and you wouldn't really know it unless you started diving into the documentation and playing around with it. So we're just going to make a completely obscure example that you'll probably never use, but it shows off some of the functionality of this. Alright, let's build this up, throw this out here. So here's our text field that we can type into, and here's our raised button that we're going to be able to click. Let's finish that button up here. I have failed you. Do it. Do as I command. Anyways. New text. There we go. Now, what we want to do here is we want to actually do the on press, which we've done tons and tons and tons of times here. So let's just make a void on pressed. Now you can do this much more compact. I just do it that way. It's, you know, there's no issues understanding what exactly is going on here. So it will call this, and we can even say print button test or button pressed. We've done that before. Now, what we want to do is actually grab the text out of this text field. And we've seen this before where we can't actually say text field dot text. The text field itself does not store a state. It's a stateless widget. So what we have to do is grab those changes as they occur. So we're going to actually say and then here, let's bang this down here and then separate that down. That way it's just a little more easier to understand. And we need to say string value. And then there's our value. We of course need our semicolon at the end here. And let's push this back out to the device. And now, as we type, you can see we are grabbing the text that is in the text field. And if we click, we have our button pressed. So what we need to do now is, you guessed it, set state. I don't like it that there. Let's bump that up. There we go. Value. That way we actually have the value here. And then we can say hot reloading should take care of that. And bang, the text is blank. Yeah, because we haven't actually stored it in the state. Let's try this. Yeah, there we go. So the text is whatever we just typed. So we've seen that before in similar older tutorials that we've done. Now what we want to do is show off some of the features of this thing. We understand now that the text field is stateless, and that's why we have to grab this on changed. But what are some other things that we can really do with this? Well, we're going to play around with it a little bit. We're going to say max lines equal 3. So we're going to have 3 max lines in here. And we want autocorrect turned on. That's right, autocorrect. Yeah, buddy. And let's just play around with that and see what that does. So let's grab this. Notice how we have 3 lines in here. 1, and we have autocorrect. So if I just type, and we can say catch, comma, and we can go down a line, maybe. Can't figure out how to go down a line on the emulator here. Oh, well, I kind of did it. You get the point, though. We have multiple lines now that we can really play around with. And the text is whatever, blah, 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 catch. So you can have multi-lines, you can have auto-correction, you can have all sorts of stuff. You can even have this little, this is an emulator, so it won't work, but I can click that and it'll actually dictate out whatever I'm saying. It'll type it out for us. Pretty awesome. So obscure text, true. I think we've done this in a previous tutorial. This is for passwords. Notice how it's a bunch of dots, and as we type, you only see the letter for a second, and then bang. So we could actually say something like, my top secret, I can't even spell, my top secret password, bang. So let's comment that out for the time being. Let's say we want a decoration. We're going to do a new input decoration. And we're going to say icons dot, why not, just icons dot print. Hint text, and we will say type something here. And we want label text to say What is your name? Uh-oh, something blew up. I guess that worked. So now you can see that we have a label text, what is your name? Let me kind of reload this because it kind of shrinks when we do that. It says, what is your name? And then when you click on it, it zooms it up there. We have an icon and it says type something here. And we have multiple lines of text. That's actually really cool. One thing you should be aware of is this whole pattern of tracking the state and all that. It can seem a little cumbersome at times. So one little trick that you can do is you can say final text editing controller and we can get the controller here and we can comment out this. Actually, we can even leave it if we want to and just say controller and give it the actual controller. Then what happens is, and we will say we want on press 2. And I'm going to comment this. Just kind of playing around here. And we're going to just print out the controller.txt. Let's reload this whole thing. So now when we click the button we're calling on press 2, which instead of grabbing the text variable is actually grabbing this controller variable. So we can say blah 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 blah, click, and you can see we get the text. And we didn't have to mess around with set state or any of that because we've got it all in this text editing controller. Actually pretty neat. So that in a nutshell is the text field. There's a little bit more to it, but I didn't want to get too in depth. These are still beginner tutorials. But as you can see, this thing packs a lot of functionality into it, probably more than most other frameworks out there. And I was really just kind of blown away when I started playing with this. So let's end this with, I hope you like Flutter. So that's it for this tutorial. If you're looking for the source code for this, maybe, there we go. Go to my website, voidrooms.com, click on tutorials. It'll take you right out to GitHub, and I have links to all of the tutorials. I do different series, but you can click on the Flutter tutorials, and then I've got all of them. You can clone the entire repo down to your hard drive and have the source for everything. On top of that, you can join the Void Rooms Facebook group. There is almost 1,800 other programmers out there, all walks of life, all different languages, and we can definitely help if you have any questions. That's it. Thank you for watching. Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the 29th Flutter tutorial. Today we're going to continue our conversation on some basic widgets, and we're going to cover the checkbox. Checkbox is a pretty basic little component, or I should say widget. But one thing we're also going to cover is the checkbox list title, which is an interesting widget. It's kind of a combination of many, and we're going to go over that as well. So let's just jump right in here. I'm going to import our, you guessed it, the Flutter material package. We'll make our simple pattern here. You think I'd have this down, but like in my sleep by now. I've done this so many times now. My app state extends state. We're going to extend the state of my app. We're going to do the run app function. Let's do this. I'm going to do a new material app. I'm going to do a new my app. Let's get that out of there so we can see what we're doing. kind of excited for Christmas. It's like a couple days away here. All right. We got our state. I'm going to build this out. All right, we are going to return a new scaffold. All right, so there's our text. All right, so now we're ready to get down to business here. Save our work. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to, well, you guessed it, we're just going to add a new checkbox. You can see how we have value and then on change. So you can already see that we've got some interaction here. And this is very similar to the text field, which we covered in the last tutorial, where we have to track on change because this is a stateless widget. It's not going to track it for us. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to say bool is check equal false. Copy that. Grab our value. Oops. And then set state. Let's actually make this private. There we go. So now we are going to track the value of whether or not that is checked. So we're going to say the value of this is checked. I should say it is the is checked variable. And we want to track that through the on change. So we'll say bool value there we go. So let's push this out and see what it does here. Where is my emulator? There it is. So pull our emulator up and wait for this to deploy it. It's going to take just a second. My computer's running slower than normal. I don't know what's going on with this thing. I think it has a cold. It caught the cold that I had. So you can see dead center of this is our checkbox. And we can check it and uncheck it. Not very helpful. So we need to snazzy this up just a little bit. So let's go out here. Let's just completely grab this thing. And we'll say new row. And in our row, we want a new text. And we'll say click it. That's not liking that for some reason. What is going on here? Oh, I know what I totally forgot. Children. There we go. All right, so we initiated a hot reload. You see it says click it, and we can check it, uncheck it, check it, and uncheck it. But if we click the actual text, click it, nothing happens. You got to actually tick that little box. And if you have big fat fingers like I have, it's not very fun. So what we're going to use next is what's called the checklist box tile. that is a fancy name for much better than what we've been working with. So let's just do this, and we'll say new, checklist by style, and bang, you can see how instantly it almost has the exact same signature. Well, actually it does. So we can just copy this whole little bad boy right here instead of retyping all that garbage out. Wait for our hot reload. Did it hot reload? No, it didn't. Let's just push it out. Uh-oh. Dependencies cannot be established. What? Expected to find. We screwed something up here. Alright, let's figure out what we did here. Unchanged bool. Why is this messing up on me here? I see what the problem is. We're missing one. And trusty hot reload works as we expect. So now we've got this little guy over here. Now because we have linked these, when I say linked, I mean they're both using the same variable and we're tracking that variable through set state. When we click one, the other one's going to change also. That's the magic of state. If you didn't really understand state before, maybe you just had a light bulb moment. Just to kind of go over this again, both of them are using the same variable, and we're saying on change, so both of them are saying on changed. So it doesn't matter which one we do, it's going to change that variable. And because they both have the same variable, and that variable is being set through set state, it's going to track the state of that variable, whether it's checked or unchecked. Thus you get this dual action going on here. So that's nice and all, but we still have the same problem where we have this checkbox and nothing else. So let's fix that. Let's break this down just a little bit. All right, so first thing we want to do here is add in title, new, text. Click me. You can see how now we can click the text and it acts, this whole thing acts as a giant checkbox. So we've kind of done this where we have a row with the text and that, but the whole thing's now clickable. And let's just say we want to do active color equal colors.red, because we want to really differentiate this bad boy. And we want secondary. And I don't know what to, let's just say home. Why not? So we're going to add a few things here. So now we have an icon, and it changes the color when it's active. Pretty neat, huh? So that is the checkbox and the checklist tile. It's called a tile because, well, it's in the shape of a tile, but it makes life a heck of a lot easier. So if you've got really finicky users or a really finicky production manager and he doesn't want to try and click this little guy, you can just use a checklist tile and life is good. That's it. Thanks for watching this. I hope you found it educational and entertaining. If you're looking for the source code for this and the other tutorials, once again, go out to my website, voidrealms.com, click on tutorials, go out to GitHub, go out to Flutter, and you can just clone all of the code right down to your machine. And if you're still listening, you're one of the cool people, you are invited to join the Void Realms Facebook group. We have 1,700 other programmers out there. And I had a few questions. People say, why are you always plugging the Void Realms Facebook group? Because it helps me. When I have a question, the first thing I do is go out there and ask, and then I usually get like 24 people with answers. So that's it. Hope you found it educational, and thank you for watching. Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the 30th Flutter tutorial. Wow, we've got 30 of these so far. Today we're going to be covering radio buttons, or radio as they're called. They're these little circles, you've seen them before, where you click one and the other one unchecks and it goes back and forth, and you have little groups of these guys. So that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to do the bare basic implementation because these are still kind of beginner tutorials. Let's just jump right in here. And we've got our material package. We're going to say going to extend the stateful widget. And we're going to extend the state of the my app. All right. Going to do run app. Make a new material app. New my app. We've done this before. I'm just trying to flesh this out as fast as I can here. Override, and then we're going to say my app state. Create state. All right. Why is this thing isn't a type? Well, perhaps if I did that. All right, so let's actually flesh this out now. Widget. All right, so I like that widget. That was interesting. All right, so we have this. Now we need to build this out and render it. And we're going to say return new scaffold. And let's do that. Bang. Ooh, new title. I don't want a new title. I want a new text. Where am I getting these things? I think I'm just typing too fast for my brain. All right, so then we have our body. All right, so we've got a center. Let's actually make new center. That way it actually works. And all right, so we've got a new column here. And this is where we're going to deviate a little bit from what we've done in the past here. I know if you've been watching some of these, you're probably going, okay, the same old design pattern over and over and over again. We're going to actually do this a little bit different. What we're going to do here is we're going to make a function called make radios. And we're going to call this right here. And this function will actually generate the radio buttons for us and wire everything up and make it all nice and neat. And we'll return our list out. So first thing we need to do is actually, make some of these. So we're going to say list.add new radio. And you can see how it's got a value, a group value, and an onChanged. We're just going to save that and run this out. So the value, while this thing is loading, the value is the actual value of this specific control if you were to select it. The group value, because remember radios come in a group, the group value would be the value selected within that group. And the onChanged, of course, is this is a stateless widget, so we have to track that state. And here is the radio button in all its glory. It's disabled because we are not tracking the onChange, which is why it's grayed out. As you can see, we have kind of the same problem we had in the last tutorial with checkboxes where we don't have text or anything. So we're going to follow a very similar pattern here. And we're going to just say, I'm going to add a row. And then children, we're going to add a new text. Uh-oh, my background music died on me. There we go. Sorry about that. My headset has like this timeout, and for whatever reason, I can't get it to not timeout. So if I don't have some background music, and it's not registering through the microphone, so if it's not playing anything through the speakers for I think like a minute, it shuts off. Really annoying when I'm recording a video. Okay, so we're gonna say radio button. Actually, just call it radio, and then new radio, and then we have our stuff here. So let's say the value of this is 0, and we need to actually track a value here, and we're going to say wow, could I have misspelled that any worse? There we go. And we've seen this before, very, very familiar design pattern where we have to track the change and set the state, and we're going to say selected equal value, bang, grab this onChanged, and we want to track that change here. Now the group value is going to be the selected value here. So what's going on is we're going to have a row, and in that row we'll have a text field, or just a text that says, radio. And then next to it we're going to have the actual radio, which is going to have a value, the group value that's shared through them all, and on and on and on. We track the change. So we're going to just grab this, push that out through hot reloading, see what it looks like. Sure enough, bang, that works. So let's just do this for let's push that out. That didn't quite work the way we wanted it to, did it? There we go. So now we have 3 radios, radio 0, 1, and 2. And you can see when we select one, the other ones are not selected. That's the group value right there. We are currently tracking that in there, and we can actually just say value 0, value 1, value 2. So we can see which one's which. Now, we have a very similar problem that we had with the checkbox, which is this text right here. If we were to try to click that, nothing happens. And if you have big fat fingers like me, you're not, a 10-year-old Asian kid, it's really hard to kind of click these specific little things. So as you might have guessed, when we go into the documentation, similar to the checkbox, there's a radio list tile, and the radio list tile is very, very similar, and we're going to actually flesh that out right now. So let's jump back into our code here, and we're just going to say for int I equals 0, I less than 3. All right, so we're going to say list.add new radio list tile, and you see it has a very familiar signature here, and we're going to break this out a little bit just so it's easier to kind of see and understand. All right, let's actually push that out there. So the value, we're just going to say I. The group value is selected, and the onChanged is the actual value. Now when we look at our hot reload, bang, we have 3. And we have similar to what we had in the previous tutorial where they share the state so that you can understand what's going on with state. And you can see now if we click off, it's the entire row. And we're going to fill those values in right now. So let's actually go in here and we're going to say title, new text, give it that title right there. And we've got our on changed here. We're going to say active color, colors.red, and we're going to give it a subtitle of new text. And we're just, I have no idea what to put here, so we're just going to say subtitle here. All right, and of course our favorite, the secondary. Give it a new icon. And I never know what icon. We're just going to say home. Why not? And in something more production-y, you would actually say, you know, an icon for each one. And let's push that out. And ta-da! In all its glory, we now have much, much fancier looking radio buttons. Or I should say radio list tiles. Very simple, very easy to understand control. Very robust, and it's kind of one of the founding fathers of all controls ever since the dawn of graphic user interfaces. So pretty simple, pretty easy to use. One thing we haven't covered is how to have like groups of these. It's a little bit more complex, but I just kind of wanted to let you know how that worked. All right, so thank you for watching. Hope you found this educational and entertaining. The source code for this and all of the tutorials is out on my website, voidrealms.com. You can click on that, and then you can just simply go out to Flutter, and bang, you can pull down the source code for all of the tutorials all at once. Also, if you're so inclined, join the Void Realms Facebook group. There's 1,700 other programmers out there. We can definitely help you out if you have any questions.